So we've been doing electrical on and off for the past month and a half. We started by doing the recessed lighting in the upstairs floor because that had to go in first.
After that, there's a lot of things that had to have been closed in. So, working in steps as you go. So it's been a lot of thinking in the parts of don't forget anything.
Like wear your electrical hat this week and then your plumbing hat next week.
Yeah.
So this week we're going to finish up the electrical and then we're going to move on and hopefully get the plumbing done.
The hardest part about any project is just getting started. And this project, our forever home, was especially a challenge. Not only is it bigger than anything that we've ever built, but it's built into a steep hillside, and whatever we do or don't do, we're gonna have to live with for the rest of our lives.
With anything utility-wise, you got to figure out where you want everything. In electrical, you had to figure out where you want the light switches, where you want the receptacles.
So the kitchen's pretty simple, but there's a lot of electrical that has to go into it. This is the walkway from their pantry and the powder room over here, and you walk in. There's a range in the island, the fridge and wall ovens over here. There's a dishwasher, garbage disposal, lots of over-the-counter receptacles. And that's pretty much it. It's actually a pretty simple kitchen. We're just going to get started on it. I always feel like, man, we're going to do utilities. I get a little break. I can work on other stuff for a couple months while they just do utilities because I don't honestly know a lot about utilities. But it doesn't work out that way. It's like, where do you want this outlet? What height is this vanity going to be at? Is there anything on this wall so I can put this through here? So it actually becomes very, there's a lot of design work.
Yeah, it's like you got to figure out where all it's going to go. And one thing that has to go first is obviously your drain pipes, because drain pipes have to be sloped. So, that's one thing we did already, and then you go ahead and then you can add in, put in the HRB, and obviously that takes up a lot of room in the floor cavities and in the walls. And then from there, water lines nowadays can be run with PEX type tubing, and that can be kind of snaked through the walls. And then obviously electrical on top of it. They have to go in kind of a stage because if you run your electrical first and then you say, now I want to go put in some the HRB, and you got to reroute a bunch of wires, it turns into a pain in the butt. So you have to kind of go in steps and which way utilities have to be buried in the wall.
This house is really finely tuned to our family's needs, to the point of like, this is where we're going to plug in the mixer, this is where the laptops are going to be plugged in. And so there does have to be electrical in very specific places. So like even before we started digging this foundation, I could tell you exactly where we're going to plug in the mixer.
Once you get to know where all your outlets are going to go, then you can go ahead and start putting all the boxes on the walls and where everything to be. And then obviously from there, then you can drill out and start pulling some Romex and getting the wire in the boxes.
Where we live in rural Alaska, you can still wire your own house. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody should, because the great fire hazard and all the dangers that come with doing a bad wiring job are still there, and you as the homeowner are going to live with it. So I'm really lucky to have him, who's wired probably a dozen houses so far and really knows what he's doing, and we can really trust him to do a good job.
Wiring a huge house or a small house, they're all the same. It's just a matter of jumping in there and knowing what to do and what not to do. It's definitely a task that I would say anybody jump on if you've never done it. When it comes to utilities, you want to make sure they're done right. So we wrapped up the electrical, got it all wired downstairs into the panel, and now it's just a matter of getting hooked up to the grid, which one thing I wish I would have done last fall and dug in the conduit to the panel outside, but that'll have to wait till thaw. But other than that, that's the last thing we need to do, and we are wired. Hey, what is that?
Hey, you want to see, Hayes? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jacob. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks, sweetie. Aha! Good thing the smoke alarm's on right now.
Okay, go serve some cake up, Grace. We gotta get back to work.
Thanks, sweetie.
Thank you.
Electrical's done. Now we're on to plumbing.
Obviously, we have all the drain lines in. Now we have all the electrical in, HRVs in, and really the last thing that we had to go in was water lines. And that could have been before electrical, but we just chose to do it in that order. So. Getting started on putting these water pipes in for the hot and cold domestic, and made these manifolds up, and now basically just branching off of here and going to each one of the appliances like washer and dryer, tub, vanities, you know, all the things that need water supplied. So yeah, so you got one that's hot and one's cold. So right now I'm going to run the tub over. As you can see, I'll just pick a line that I want to do, and I'm going to run the cold first. So instead of running half-inch pipe and running it right from the utility room all over the place, I like to run a main line all the way down the house, and then you put manifolds in so you have only short runs of half-inch pipe, and that way you have the least amount of water coming from, say you turn on the hot water and you got to wait, you know, 30 seconds for hot water because it's got to take all that water that's in the pipe that's cold, and you know, then you get hot water. So if you can make it to where it's the shortest run possible from your hot water tank, the better. From the manifolds, then you go up and then you run them all up into fixtures. Just getting this last manifold put on. This one will do the kitchen and half bath upstairs. So we had to run all the way across the house. So I put in this little this 3 manifold on this side. So now just tying in the main lines for the water. Then we'll run the half-inch lines. So it's as easy as that. These little plastic rings. You expand them and then they got this other ring, and then they'll shrink back over the pipe. They're a good system. So now just got to drill some holes and run my water lines to the other places around this side of the house. What we have here is they call these stub L's, and they're just half-inch copper pipe. Obviously you can see they have a fitting here, which is the pipe that we're hooking up to. So we have a back-to-back sink here. So here's the coffee bar side. It'll just be a small sink and a countertop for coffee. And then what I'm in right now is just a half bath for the main floor. That manifold downstairs, we're going to branch off a bit and then go in here with a hot and cold, and then we'll tie in right here with our pipe fittings. So this will be a hot, left is always hot, cold is always on the right, and vice versa. So we'll just punch up here, jog over, and catch those 2 sinks. Alright, so now that we got our pipe, we stubbed it up through the floor, and we got our stub L. So I'm going to leave it a little bit long. We'll make our connections later. Now we got to go down, let's go make sure we got enough to the manifold, and we'll attach that later too. So we can go ahead, got these cutters here for PEX pipe, and I want to make sure that we have enough. This cutter is real nice, cuts everything nice and straight. And I always like to label, so this is hot for half bath and coffee sink. Tee off of this upstairs for the other sink, but we'll have one main line coming off the manifold. So it just requires one hot and one cold coming off the manifold. And then when we're all said and done, the last thing to do when you get all your water lines in, it's a very important step, but you want to pressure test everything. And the way you pressure test everything is everything gets plugged or capped off with the stub L's that are at your sinks, and then you go ahead and you put an air fitting on there and you pressure test it to 100 psi, and you run that up and you leave it set overnight. And like that way you know that when you go and you put water in this place, you won't have a leak. You know, there's very few fittings between the manifolds and there, but still, if you have one of those that leaks, you know, you're going to have to go tear drywall off and get in and fix something that you don't really want to fix. Pretty much done with plumbing, but the last couple of things I want to tie in are these outside hose bibs for your garden hoses and whatnot outside, and they make these, they call them a freezeless wall faucet, and what it is basically you drill a hole in your wall. This is your outside of the building, inside of your building's in here, and so when you open this valve, the actual valve itself is right at the end here, so it's inside. And when you close this valve, all the water that's from here to the outside of the building has this little flapper here, and it allows the water to drain out of your pipe. So the only water that's in the pipe in the wintertime is inside the building, so it can't freeze. So as long as your building doesn't freeze, you shouldn't have a problem with these things breaking. In our climate we have up here, this is a really nice way to go for your outside faucets, and you don't need to drain them down every winter. I'm not sure what these, but like 25, 30 bucks a piece, and yeah, we'll throw them in. The last thing you got to do is then go ahead and foam the pipe in so you don't have a drafty spot that can create frost in the wintertime. And the other thing too is you want this at a slight angle, so you want to be able to set this where the water has an option to run downhill outside, because if you left it at a downhill angle like this, it would just hold the water in the pipe and freeze and does you no good. So I'm foaming it now, and we'll make sure that this is at a slight angle so the water drains outside. So utilities are done, and all the interior walls are pretty much plumb full of utilities. There isn't a whole lot of interior walls in this place, so it was a real challenge getting everything into this house. We made it work, and I'm glad that it's done, so we can be on to drywall here shortly.
Actually
what?
There's one more utility I want to add into the walls.
What is it?
I'll tell you after lunch.
Okay, so what else are we putting in the walls that isn't in there already?
There's one more utility that I think is really important to put into this house, and it's not wires. It's more pipe. Sorry.
What do we have more pipe for?
Well, I was going to do like a vacuum laundry system where the kids could throw their laundry into baskets and it just sucks it to the laundry room.
You're going to do?
Just kidding. I think we should put in central vac, and next week we'll show you how we do that. We'll see you next week. Happy birthday.
Thanks. What are we going to do tonight?
This is it. Can't top this.
You guys better come get some.
Holy gee! How big a fridge you guys putting in?
48.
48.
It's a freezer and fridge. Upright freezer, upright fridge next to each other.
48?
When you're married to a hunter, I've learned two things. You have to have a bigger fireplace, to have bigger antlers, and you have to have a bigger fridge for more meat. It's just the way it is. Ross knows what I'm talking about. He's married to a hunter.
Oh! There's a lot of work ahead.
And Anna doesn't like, you know, when the sheetrock's over the top, she doesn't care what's in the wall.
No, I don't.
Ross, did you lose that lower bumper yesterday?
I lost that from my brake failings earlier this winter. I stumped my crew. See, I
I was still hanging on.
I went off the other way.
Maybe I was coming up, I was in two-wheel drive, and I actually did a 360.
Yeah,
Going uphill and I
I'm
landed going down.
downhill.
Yeah.
Oh,
That hill's gonna claim so many cars.
It didn't claim mine. I pulled it right out. There's no claiming.
I got claimed last night.
I did run off though, so I think everybody's ran off there except for Seth.
Well, he ran off somewhere. And
Yeah.
he's not here.
I haven't ran off.
Oh,
It's my birthday.
You can't make this stuff up.